and we're going to do a little video here to discuss some puppetry techniques in a classic Muppet piece from Sesame Street. Thanks to the website Hulu.com, they have all kinds of different segments on there from classic Muppet segments of Sesame Street. And since you can embed them on your website or your blog, we're going to embed that clip on my blog and then put this clip on here so we can kind of analyze some of the things that we see there. If you are not watching this on my website and you're watching on YouTube or something like that, just go to Hulu.com, Hulu.com, and search for the Sesame Street segment. It's a Muppet News Flash Rapunzel. That's the one we're going to look at today. This is a classic clip. It's originally aired in 1974, and it features three of the best puppeteers you're ever going to see. Jerry Nelson plays the part of Rapunzel, Frank Oz plays the part of Prince Charming, and Jim Henson plays the part of Kermit the Frog. And so a few of the things I noticed in this segment. First of all, one of the things to notice is the arm rod movements of the puppets. One of the questions I get all the time in workshops is how do you manipulate two arm rods at the same time? And while this is an important thing to learn and to know if you're going to be an advanced puppeteer, this clip shows that it is not something that you need to do all the time to do a great performance. You'll notice that both Kermit the Frog and Prince Charming are only using one arm. One of the arms is attached to the body of the puppet, so it can't be used. They're doing all the gestures with just one hand. And they actually are able to do a great range of gestures, even with those limitations. And even in the case of Kermit, you'll notice that he's holding a microphone through the whole thing. And so the gestures he can do is with a hand that has a microphone permanently attached. So even with that limitation, they're able to do a lot of great stuff. And this is especially true with Prince Charming. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about here has to do with Frank Oz's performance as Prince Charming, which is really a neat performance. He does a lot of great kind of flowing gestures with the arm rod. When the puppet moves into the shot, he's kind of has this float to him as he comes in and takes these big dramatic steps. And it just kind of creates this pompous character who's very full of himself. And this carries over to a lot of other things in the way that he performs the character. The lip sync, for one, is very interesting. Usually if I'm instructing puppeteers, we try to tell them that for lip sync, we're going to be focusing on the lower jaw of the puppet. If your hand is inside the puppet and you're going to lip sync, you're not just moving your hand around, you're going to try to move primarily your thumb to make the bottom jaw do most of the movement. Because when we move the upper jaw, our four fingers, the head of the puppet starts to bob back. And it's usually pretty distracting to watch. But that is exactly what Frank Oz is doing in this segment. If you'll notice, the puppet does seem to be flipping his lid a bit. But again, this really fits the pompous nature of the character. Prince Charming is very full of himself, so he's got his nose up in the air, and he's not making eye contact with the other characters very much because he's in his own little world. So the fact that he's primarily moving the upper jaw and the head is moving backwards just contributes to this pompous character. And it really fits to just the design of the puppet. The puppet appears to be the same basic puppet character as Guy Smiley was. It may even be the same puppet, I don't know. But the kind of a long nature of the puppet's head makes that kind of movement, it really fits that style of puppet. Now, another thing to really watch for has to do with the character's eye contact, which is something that is related directly to the lip sync. One of the reasons we don't like to flip the lid very much with the puppet is because the eye contact is always going to be off. If the top jaw of the puppet is moving, the eyes are floating around all over the place, and the puppet can't really maintain eye contact with anything. But here, the prince is not maintaining eye contact with anybody, again, because he's in his own little world. And so it's interesting then when he gets dragged back into reality. Every now and then you'll notice when Kermit comes and interrupts him, he'll kind of look down quickly at Kermit and then come back to his nose up in the air, as if he's just kind of breaking for a second out of his own little fantasy world where he's the center of the universe, to tell the frog to be quiet, and then he's back up to his nose up in the air. Same thing when Rapunzel shouts at him, "I can't hear you, talk louder." He turns down and he looks right at the camera, kind of like he's saying to the audience, can you believe this? I can't believe what I have to deal with here. And so it kind of brings him back down into reality for a brief second, but then his nose goes back up in the air and he's back in his own little world. The other thing that I really love about this clip is the ending, where the prince walks off, and then a few moments later, as Kermit's closing down the news report, he comes back in and says, I've lost my horse. I can't find my horsey. And this is another great example of how the Muppet performers would often create a world that was larger than what the audience could see. We never see the horse in this skit. We hear him coming in the beginning, off camera. We hear the sound of the horse gallop in. We hear the sound of the prince getting off the horse, but we never see the horse. And so then at the end, when the prince comes back in and says, "I can't find my horse," again, it's creating this illusion of a larger world, and it's also kind of poking fun at it a bit because, they know that we never got to actually see the horse, so they're kind of poking fun at that fact, because we don't know that the horse was ever there to start with, but, they're leading us on this journey, and we trust that they've created this larger world. The Muppets do this all the time. Another great example of this is where on a Muppet Show episode, and again it involves Frank Oz as the main performer, when Sam the Eagle sings the song Titwillow with Rolf the dog accompanying him on piano. At one point, Sam is looking at the lyric sheet, he's studying it along, and he turns and looks off camera and says to somebody, "Do you want to do this?" And we have no idea who he's speaking to. We can't see who he's speaking to, but we imagine the rest of this bigger world. We can imagine that maybe he's looking at the other Muppet characters. Maybe Gonzo and Scooter and Floyd are sitting over there, and they're all going because they're laughing at Sam looking a little ridiculous out there. And so he makes this comment to them. So it creates this larger world. It's the same thing as when Kermit the Frog sings the song Happy Feet and he tap dances. We never see his feet, but because of Jim Henson's expert manipulation, the illusion is created that he has feet. Even when it's just as simple as seeing a puppet character walk in the scene, we see him walking like he has legs. They're creating that bigger world. So it goes beyond just, imagining the legs of the puppet, but imagining the things that are going on out of the view of the camera, or if you're on a puppet team and performing in a puppet stage, out of the view of or the realm of the puppet stage. So anyway, that's my take on Rapunzel. It's a great clip. Now, one of the things too, let me say this. I don't know that Frank Oz and Jerry Nelson and Jim Henson planned all this stuff out and analyzed this deeply. Probably not. These guys, knew their characters, and they knew how to create the illusion of life. And so, a lot of these things probably just happened. And so it's kind of being in that mindset of, creating a believable world. The goal of the puppeteer is not to draw attention to the puppeteer, but to create this illusion of life. And they succeeded in that, beyond belief. You need to not do things to draw attention to yourself as a puppeteer, but to create this believable environment that your puppets exist in. So, anyway, if you haven't watched the clip yet for Rapunzel, go enjoy that, and hopefully maybe we'll get to do a few more of these little analysis as they put more of these clips up on Hulu. So, thanks for watching.